Having now played all three Trails in the Sky games, I can say confidently and without reservation that the third is easily the worst of the trilogy. It's still great, and I had an absolute blast playing it, but there's three games. One of them's going to be my least favorite. So, why do I place the third in third? Structurally, Trails in the Sky the Third is quite similar to the previous sequel. Both feature a new story building on what came before, with a few new characters added to the existing cast and a few new areas to explore on top of locations we'd familiarized ourselves with in the first game. What sets the third apart is its complete uninterest in being an entry point for new players. While gamers new to the Trails in the Sky series should start with the first game, one could pretty easily start with second chapter and quickly get caught up on how the world works, what's going on, who the characters are, their relationships with each other, and what they're trying to accomplish. Trails the Third? Not so much. It broadly expects the player to come into the game not just knowing who the characters are, how they relate to each other, and what their goals are, but that you already have a relationship with them. That you like them. It's like an inside joke. Sure, if someone explains it, you can understand and even enjoy the humor on an intellectual level, but you probably won't feel it emotionally. They're one of those you had to be there things, and aren't going to mean as much unless you were. And so it goes with Trails in the Sky the Third. If you didn't meet Ren in the previous game, learning her backstory in the third isn't going to have the impact that it would had you grown to love her over the course of her developing character arc in second chapter. Hell, my favorite scene in the third is the tete-a-tete between Olivia and Chancellor Osborne. Ooh, the drama, the intrigue, the suspense. But if you don't have the background from the first two games and don't know who Olivia is and what he's doing, or who he really is and what he's really doing, then that whole scene, phenomenally well written as it is, almost certainly wouldn't work for you and may even come across as a bit dull and superfluous. Trails in the Sky the Third is fan service, the game. In some ways, Trails the Third acts like a gacha game. You start with two characters, and as you progress, you add more and more to your party by, I kid you not, finding a box, opening it up, and seeing who's inside. And every added member is someone players of the first two games will know, so a big part of the fun is guessing which character from the first two games, possibly heretofore unplayable, is going to pop out of the box and join your party. Players who don't know who any of these people are will naturally not have the same experience. Similarly, throughout the game, you will come across a couple dozen magic doors, most of which show vignettes detailing what characters from the previous titles have been doing, or revealing bits of their past that explain their current motivations and personalities. Again, the significance of these revelations are going to be, for the most part, completely lost on new players. Trails in the Sky the Third is a game specifically for the fans. Consequently, it is not very welcoming to new players as an entry point to the series, and that is a bold and risky choice for an IP that, even today, though it's found an ever-expanding base of adoring fans, is still fairly niche. But when you publish your own game, you get to roll them dice. Now, what does that have to do with the fact that Trails in the Sky the Third is my least favorite of the three? Nothing. I just thought it was a really interesting approach for the finale of a trilogy of games. Besides, as a fan of the first two, I'm definitely the game's target audience. So, 700 words later, why is the third my least favorite? Two main reasons. Firstly, there aren't enough people to talk to. One of the many elements of the first two games that I love is the fact that almost every character in every town has a name, a personality, a story. And if you take the time to talk to them, you will learn about them and get to follow their individual stories throughout the games. Not only is that, well, fun, But it also helps make the game world feel like a real lived-in place. For example, in the first game, you meet Alden, who is an airship enthusiast. Throughout the games, you'll find him excitedly chattering about various ships and his desire to one day be on one. Well, the opening of Trails the Third takes place on a luxury airship, and who should we find hanging out on board but our good buddy Alden, who is a bit critical of the vessel's top speed, but otherwise tickled pink to be on it. Until plot happens, fights break out with armed guards and monsters, and poor Alden is afraid the entire ship is going to fall out of the sky. And now, I wonder if that experience has outright killed his enthusiasm for airships as a whole, and I can't wait to find out if he pops up in future games to see how he's doing. And that is not something I can say about really any NPC from any other RPG. It's one of the things that helps make the Trails in the Sky series so special. Unfortunately, while instances such as our encounter with Alden are frequent throughout the first two games, that's about the only example I can think of from the third. For the majority of the game, our heroes are stuck in essentially limbo, with no one to talk to but themselves. Does that make the game bad? No. But that element is sorely missed. The other reason I don't think the third is as satisfying as the first two is its environments. The first two games feature a wide variety of towns, cities, farms, forests, beaches, fortresses, caves, all kinds of varied locales. Each set is dressed in a way that's attractive, interesting, and promotes environmental storytelling. The only real exception are the altered space versions of the 4 tetracyclic towers, which are visually attractive but also kind of repetitive and dull, essentially a series of meandering walkways floating over an endless void. Sadly, most of the major areas in Trails in the third are pretty much that, a series of meandering walkways floating over an endless void. It makes sense for the story being told, but it is kind of repetitive and dull. You do get to visit a few areas from the earlier games, like the castle town of Grancel, but for plot reasons, there's no one there. It's empty. Which, if you've played the first games, it's kind of unsettling and creepy. If you're a new player, it's just a big empty town. You understand why it's a big deal, but you probably won't feel it. I'm drifting back into my fascination with the final game in a trilogy, intentionally keeping new players at arm's length in order to focus on thoroughly indulging returning players with fan-servicey goodness. And hey, wouldn't you know it, I am a returning player, so the gacha-style party building and revelations about all my favorite characters' backstories work a treat on me. Yes, I miss the NPCs, and the explorable environments are not as interesting, so while Trails in the Sky the Third may be my least favorite of the three, I still enjoyed the hell out of it, and I can't wait to jump into the next arc this Sunday, January 8th, at noon Pacific Standard Time, with Trails from Zero. I hope to see you there.